What's up, everybody? Derek Anderson, the DA. You know, this situation right here, this has to be painful, right, for an author, right? Somebody that, like myself, that writes and creates stories and novels and things like that, characters, you know, for somebody just to come along and take over your work and not care at all about it. So this article is on Variety. George R.R. Martin and Neil Gaiman hate when Hollywood makes illegitimate changes to the source material. Effing moron. Yeah, like that has to be very, very frustrating. Because imagine, like, if you're a writer, you spend nights, sleepless nights sometimes, you know, or, you know, just agonizing over your different story points, characters that you're trying to develop, you know, storylines that you're trying to connect to one another. You know, you got scenarios you want to bring in, but you don't know quite where they go. And you've been agonizing and trying to fit all of this stuff within your story and within your narrative, right? And you've been working on it maybe for months or years, and then finally it comes out, it's a success, everybody loves it, and then some jackass says, hey, I'm gonna take your story and I'm gonna do what I want to do with it. And it's like, wait, what? And then they change it and it's for the worst. Okay, it's one thing if you change a story for the better, right? Like that does happen in Hollywood. There's a lot of times where the original book is, you know, not as good as the movie. Take a movie like Jaws, like completely different from the book, okay? Completely different from the book, but it's for the better, right? You know, the movie is actually a lot better than the book in many ways, right? Or like Starship Troopers. Starship Troopers, depending on which one you like, the book or the movie. Some people love the book, some people love the movie better, right? Same thing with The Shining, right? The Shining kind of has that same kind of feel. Some people love the book, some people love the movie, some people hate the book and love the movie. You know, it's like you have that dynamic going on with adaptations, right? Jurassic Park, one of my favorite books in the whole wide world, right? I love that book. It's completely different from the movie, all right? Jurassic Park, the book, and Jurassic Park, the movie are like two completely different stories, you know? And yeah, they kind of all deal with the same stuff, but there's a lot going on in the novel that never comes out in the film, right? So that happens a lot in Hollywood, and there's nothing wrong with it in and of itself, except the goal of an adaptation. When you think about it, the goal of the adaptation is to get as close as possible to the original source material, staying true to the essence of the original book, without insulting your audience, and the audience especially that built that particular storybook or film, movie, with TV show, whatever, the ones that made it what it is, right? You know, we see that in comics all the time. We see that in Star Wars all the time. The people that made this what it is, okay, who you guys are standing on the shoulders of, you're insulting them constantly. You know, we understand what George R.R. Martin and Neil Gaiman are talking about. You know, you're making changes to the source material that don't even make sense. Let's go ahead and read through this article. So it starts off talking here, you know, George R.R. Martin was reflecting on his career, Hollywood and literary career, sharing stories with Neil Gaiman, you know, at a kind of a conversation at New York City Symphony Space Thursday night. I'm not going to get into like all the nooks and crannies because he's talking about a lot of stuff like success later in life, on the gratifications of the fans, you know, being outshined by a mascot at an early book signing. Let's get right to what we're talking about. Honoring source material. As someone who's been on both sides of screen adaptations for literature, Martin discussed the obligation to be faithful to the written material, which he said is a controversial issue in Hollywood. The author made it clear where he stands. How faithful do you have to be? Some people feel they don't have to be faithful at all. There's this phrase that goes around, I'm going to make it my own. I hate that phrase, and I think Neil probably hates that phrase too. Yeah, I bet he does. I do, Gaiman responded. I spent 30 years watching people make Sandman their own, and some of those people hadn't even read Sandman to make it their own. They just flipped through a few comics or something. You know, have you ever had to like do your book report in class for a book that like everybody's read? You know what I mean? And I'm not talking about when the teacher said, hey, go out to the library, pick a book, and do a book report on it. No, I'm talking about when everybody in class was reading the same book, right? And then you had to go write a book report, okay? And then the teacher comes and asks a few of you guys, all right, stand up in front of the class and read your book report, right? And it becomes painfully obvious at that point about which of your classmates read the book and which of your classmates which of these cats just kind of skimmed through that bad boy for a few minutes and said, all right, man, I'm just going to make up some shit on the fly because I'm not going to read this book. They couldn't be bothered to take 2 hours out of their day to read Charlotte's Web. After all, we got video games to play. Hey, man, Super Mario Brothers ain't going to beat itself, okay? I'm just telling you. It ain't going to beat itself. Am I right? All right? Bowser's tough. You got to get to that dude. Everybody in class is staring at this cat like, bruh, you didn't read the book, did you? You ain't even, like, what story did you read? What story is this that you're trying to tell us? Charlotte's Web is a story about this pig and this spider, and then, like, the spider bites the pig because the spider's radioactive and he becomes Peter Porker. And that's what Neil Gaiman is talking about. These cats just kind of flipped through a couple of comics and just said, hey, all right, there we go, Sandman, I got it. Let's get to the script. Let's get to some actors. Let's start shooting scenes. It's like, whoa, have you read any of this stuff? Do you know what the themes of this book are? Do you understand the character arcs that I've been writing and all of that? No, you don't understand this book at all. And the reason is that these guys just want to be creative. They just want to spread their own creativity within this world, okay? Instead of making a world that they can exploit and do whatever they want to do it within the confines of this particular universe. It's like Rian Johnson had said when he's talking about The Last Jedi. It would break my heart if I were finished, if I couldn't get back in that sandbox at some point. He calls it a sandbox. It's just a plaything. It's just a place to play, all right? They want to build their little castles and play with their little army men, and they're not trying to actually do the source material any kind of justice at all, okay? They want to create on the fly. They're creators, okay? I get it personally, B. I get it, because you're a creator. You want to create. You don't want to be stifled and limited to the rules of a universe that's already been pre-written, okay? But that's not the way this thing works. If you decide to jump into this particular universe, story world, whatever, you got some rules that you got to follow, okay? And you can't just go make it up as you go. You got to stick to what the fans are looking for. Gaiman added, it was a joy getting to make season 1 of Sandman on Netflix. Martin energized the crowd by saying, we want season 2. Martin continued, there are changes that you have to make or that you are called upon to make that I think are legitimate, and then there are other ones that are not legitimate. You know, he's very right about that. You know, and let me say this, like, it's one thing for like a Martin Scorsese or somebody, right, you know, or Steven Spielberg that has like kind of an artistic way of looking at things. If they come in and say, hey, you know what, I like your story, I like your book, I like your comic book, TV show, whatever the case is, but I'm gonna make some changes here and there, and here's why, okay? And it's like, all right, these guys have built equity, okay? They've paid their dues. They've been in the game for a long, long time. So, and I trust that they know what they're talking about, all right? They've been there and they've done that, all right? So you got some confidence when those guys decide that, hey, I'm going to make some changes. I'm going to do a little bit different. You're talking about some legends in the game right there. But it's a different story when these jokers are doing it. When these clown shoes is doing it, it's a completely different story, right? You know what I'm saying? That's how we end up with like Tony Soprano, I guess. I don't know what this dude is they're gonna combine the two of these guys together. Tony Soprano White. That's how you get that kind of nonsense, okay? Because you got dudes that absolutely don't know what they're doing. They don't know anything about these characters. They haven't put in any, you know, time like a Spielberg or a Scorsese. They're new to the game, okay? They brand new to this. They don't even understand the art of making films quite yet. Or television shows. They don't even understand the artistry behind making a television show. All they know is that, hey man, I can go up here and slap on some really cool CGI because the CGI department's going to handle that. My show is going to look fine, all right? But in terms of the story, well, hey, you know, we'll see how it goes. That's how this stuff takes, man. You know, Martin continues, he recalled adapting Roger Zelazny's The Last Defender of Camelot for an episode of The Twilight Zone. Due to budget restraints, he was forced to having to choose between horses and an elaborate Stonehenge-esque set for a battle scene. Yeah, he didn't want to make that decision, so he calls up the original writer, says, yeah, scrap the horses. That, to my mind, is the kind of stuff you're called upon to do in Hollywood that is legitimate. An example of an illegitimate change, Martin says, was CBS making him include an ordinary person who just tags along in the episode in order to appeal to a high concept. I was new to Hollywood, Martin says. I didn't think you're effing morons. Yeah, they are. And then we get to this one right here. The Witcher former writer recalls staff actively mocking the source material. Can you imagine that? You know, like a show that you are looking forward to because you are a diehard fan of the source material, and then you wonder, well, why did this thing not quite live up to my expectations? Because, see, I saw Witcher season 1, but I was like, it was all right. You know, I was like, okay, well, it seemed like it was okay. I didn't know anything about it because I've never been like a fan of The Witcher and the source material, the video games or the books or any of that stuff. So I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know any better. I was like, man, it was all right, I guess. And everybody that hit, what? Oh no, man, the book is 10 times better. Oh, that show was horrible. And they were just dumping on it. And I was like, oh, shoot. Hey, man, I didn't know. I don't read the books, okay? But imagine you read the books, okay? It's something that you're looking forward to seeing coming out. You got Henry Cavill playing The Witcher. It's like, yes, man, I'm looking forward to this. And then you come to find out, oh, yeah, these cats been dumping on the source material, okay? They laughed at it. They thought it was just trash. They thought it was stupid. Says here, you have to respect the work before you are allowed to add to its legacy. Yes. Why would anybody that doesn't respect the work want to even work on this? If you can't get the respect of the material that you're working on, man, get out of here. These fandoms mean a lot to people, and it's just amazing that this type of stuff happens, but it does. You heard George R.R. Martin, you heard what he said. Yeah, some people don't even care. Hollywood doesn't care. They certainly don't. And the more that we continue to bring it up and talk about it, I guarantee you, fans all over the world will start to say, hey, you know what? Maybe we should check out other people's stuff, because the people that are making the material, they don't care about us, okay? They care about themselves getting a paycheck, adding another little notch on IMDb or whatever the case may be. They're not that concerned with doing a good quality job for the fans of the work, okay? For the people that are ultimately going to be paying them for this crap that they're making, okay? Perhaps it's no surprise that DeMeo wanted those kind of vibes nowhere near his X-Men 97 project for Marvel, where he only brought certified lovers of the original animated series on board. That's what we need, okay? We need folks that are legit fans of the original material making this stuff, all right? And I don't mean you got to be like president of the fan club. I'm not saying that. But you at least have to have a love for the material, and you've read it. You would be a fan of this material whether or not you were writing for this show, okay? You would love the material just on its face. Hey, I just like the material, period. I'm a fan of the show, okay? Or the fan of the book, or the fan of the comic. That's it. I'm not asking for a lot. But anyway, folks, what do you think about this situation? Every time we see source material being discussed, it's always seeming like it's a negative thing. And now you see like the writers themselves, they're like, man, Hollywood just doesn't understand it. They just take complete liberties with our stuff. And then some of the writers that are writing on this stuff themselves, they don't even respect the material. It really explains a lot of Hollywood, doesn't it? But go ahead, folks. Leave me your thoughts and your opinions in the comments below. Thanks for watching. See you next time.